Yeah, it does look a little bit like Cleopatra Day. It's really Coleoptera. I wonder if any of the Fozy know what a Coleoptera is.
We're going to find out. Somebody will.
Blake Middleton first on. John Emmett. Blake up in Minnesota. John, of course, he's at the family farm today, Julia.
Is he?
Clayton Allen Embley from the bluegrass state of Kentucky.
Oh, good.
Ted Ryman down in Cape Town, Republic of South Africa. Greg Phillips from the Gold Coast, the beautiful Gold Coast of Australia. Christopher and Jane Gillingham checking in from normally Leamington, saying hi to the Fozy. Peter Taylor in New York City, normally. Again, we say normally because
you never know.
One never knows. As we count down this, our 721st show. Welcome.
Peter, the gang's all here.
Indeed, the gang is all here, including Julia and myself here in Studio B at the Beach Street Yacht Club in San Francisco. I'm your host, Tom Eamon, along with co-host, Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club, and the coordinating producer of this show now for 8 years. This is our 8th year. We got folks on here. Pedro Foiling Sailor is joined. He's having a walk at Balmoral down in Sydney, playing with old cars today, a Willis Overlander.
Willys.
Willys. Well, yeah, Willis. Hi from Miami, Fritz Mueller is saying. Another Floridian who's maybe celebrating the Stanley Cup win last night, but by their Florida Panthers. One never knows if he cheers for hockey, let alone for that team. There's a couple teams in Florida. Rick Bannerow in East Hampton, New York. Ed Worley cheers everyone as we kick off show 721. Julia, the days are getting shorter already.
I know. As I say, I feel it all 30 seconds.
You don't really notice it, do you?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
I'm sure it's psychological.
Alistair Murray's on. I wonder if he feels it. Their days are getting longer down under.
Yeah.
Blake Middleton's heading to Colorado this weekend to support his sister, who's also living with MS.
Well, that's too bad.
Good for you, Blake.
Yeah.
Blake does very well considering his rather advanced case of MS, and long time friend. Used to work for us. I don't know if you knew this. He used to work for us at USYRU back 40 plus years ago.
I think you've mentioned it.
Before he's moved on to coaching at Stanford and then running racing up in Minnesota. Hi, everybody. It's Tuesday, the 25th of June here. It's the 26th down under. Welcome to a show that's going to be large. If you're not interested in, guess what, SailGP, you can tune out because that's the main focus here. We have a little news from Barcelona. We have a little news from the other parts of the global sailing world, the Bermuda race, some other interesting things. The J-boats. We're going to talk about the J-boats today, but we want to start by thanking Julia.
Yes.
Hamish. Wasn't that a good show?
He did a really good job.
Friday show. If you missed it, go back and watch it in... Julia? Replay. When I stop talking, you got to start talking because either I'm having a senior moment or a brain fade. Oh. Fritz Mueller says he is a Panthers fan from the get-go. That's their hockey team, one of their two hockey teams in Florida.
They got to be happy today.
So they are indeed happy. And thanks again to Hamish. Here he is on his classic yacht, Rainbow. A shot that I think Richard Gladwell took in 2015, another one of our Fozy. Thanks, Hamish. That was a terrific show. Julia, I don't remember so many comments after the show. Even Julie Ahrens, who's not one of Hamish's big fans because of the conflict between Hamish and at times Grant Dalton and others. But
right.
And she's such a fan of Grant Dalton's, as you know. But
totally.
Even she had nice things to say about Hamish in that show, as did many other people.
Yes, he did a great job, and I always learn so much. And I And I loved the old boats.
A lot of people do, and Mary Jude Szymanski is another who sent us a nice note afterwards. She and her partner Ray, husband Ray, watched it in replay on Friday night, thought it was a terrific show. Jeff Ogle, hello. Jeff, been a while. I need an AC update. Not a lot going on in the Cup, but we will get to that, Jeff, in due course as we check in on Don Lunabos up in wine country in Sonoma. The fires have already started, Julia.
Yeah.
Up in wine country, right?
Mm. You're about to have huge floods in the Midwest.
Well, everybody complains about the weather and nobody does anything about it. Alex Hayworth, the UK has a general election next week. Send help early and often. The new UK government is here to help you.
Oh, yes.
I think most everybody on here is happy when the government stays out of our lives, largely. I know Joe Holtzman in Estes Park up in Colorado is a small government aficionado. Thanks again, Hamish. That was terrific. And apropos the Florida Panthers last night, they won Lord Stanley's Cup. They started the season really as the laughing stock, or they have been over the years. It's been a long haul, and the Panthers, as they're called, the Florida Panthers, the other is the Tampa Bay Lightning, but the Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup. They were up, this is the NHL National Hockey League's championship. They were up 3-0 in that event. They were up 3-0, and the other team, the Edmonton Oilers,
Yes.
Wayne Gretzky's old team, came back and tied it up 3-3. And then last night was if you're a bridge player, not the penultimate, it was the bridge match. It was the final.
Bridge match.
And they won 4-3. That is the Florida Panthers. And it was a nail-biter. It was 2-1. Bravo Zulu to them. This is another Floridian who is not exactly a Florida Panthers fan. You know who that is? That is Bill Wingrove in Tampa. I texted him this morning. He said, if I follow hockey, I'll follow the local team, which is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Julie, I have another question. Do you suppose Bill is a drummer? What's that in his hand? Looks like a drumstick, but it may be a flag stick or something. I'm not quite sure what that is.
Oh, it looks like.
If he's on, he's got to tell us.
Yeah.
But maybe he's a drummer. Sailing is J24. Did you catch the name of his J24? I'll go back it up.
Pigs in hiding.
Pigs in hiding. Bill Wingrove.
I'm glad to see a picture of him. I don't know him, and I haven't seen a picture of him.
A tiller extension. Now, his till, look at in that photo, his tiller extension's black. His tiller extension, see in that other photo, is black. Yeah. I don't think that's a tiller extension with a little knob like that. You're going to put a knob on it. I think it's going to be bigger than that. Was it Boris Johnson? Some idiot was going on and on and on and on last week about getting eaten by a shark. A weed stick. Now, that makes more sense. Fritz Mueller down in Miami, another Floridian. That's Bill Wingrove in Tampa. And just one other note, it's a Harry Potter wand. Graham Sweeney has the best, he's the best jokes, the best timing, best sense of humor on this show.
He also had a best sunrise picture that I've seen for a long time.
He's a great photographer, isn't he?
Boy, is that good.
Speaking of the Edmonton Oilers, their captain and super player, this is very unusual when the MVP in the NHL is called the Conn Smythe Trophy, when the MVP is from the losing team. Mm-hmm. He played so well over the season, but particularly in the playoffs, that he was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy, even though he didn't score any points in the last two games, which maybe led to the Oilers' downfall. You know, in hockey, they credit assists.
Yes.
With the same number of points as a goal.
Mm-hmm.
If you get an assist, that's a point. If you get a goal, that's a point.
Which is
the way it should be.
Yeah,
right?
It makes sense. Yeah.
Pool cue, Alan Law. Thanks. Okay, bravo to them. Julia, what are we celebrating today? There is a hint there on that slide.
Abbey Road, I know.
Then who is and what is Abbey Road?
That was the Beatles.
That was the Beatles, the street, the road in London on which the Beatles had their studio. And indeed, today is Global Beatles Day.
Oh, good.
And that that Cleopatra, see what was it? Cereal, whatever that is. That is the genus or the something of a beetle spelled Beetle. Not the Beatle.
Oh, okay.
But there they are crossing Abbey Road on that probably the most famous photo of them, wouldn't you say?
I think so. Yeah.
Somebody in Spain must have written this because it was in the year 1960 on a foggy island here, found northwest of Spain. Foggy island. That music history changed forever. Four young proto-gods, indeed they did become gods.
Yeah.
Certainly the music world, if not beyond, came together to form what would be one of the most influential rock bands to ever come out of England, if not the entire world. We're speaking, of course, of the Beatles, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, John Lennon, and of course, drummer Ringo Starr. These four boys came together to change the world one song at a time. Greg Normand in the Great Lakes is arguing for James Taylor. The Beatles by the numbers. This is impressive. They've sold more than 600 million. I don't think that's the highest number of albums, but it's certainly up there. 600 million albums across the world. They've sold over 1.6 billion singles in the U.S. alone. Not many bands have knocked, if any, others have knocked themselves off the number one position in the UK or the US chart. But they did it twice. They won 7 Grammys. Their song Hey Jude was fully 19 weeks at the top of the charts. And they have had more number one hit singles on the Billboard Hot 100 chart than any other band, with 20 number ones. In the UK, the Beatles album spent 174 weeks on the top of the charts in total. Remember, they weren't together that long.
I know.
You know, they pulled apart after, basically the 60s. Yeah. Yesterday is the most covered song in history, or so some people assert. Some people say it was Summertime. Summertime,
yeah.
And the living is easy.
Yeah.
But in any event, a fabulous run by the Beatles, and they're still running today. Do you, for extra credit, know how old Paul McCartney is, for example?
Almost 70.
McCartney? He's almost your age.
Really?
He's 82. He was born in whatever year that is.
Yeah.
42?
I was born in 39.
Yeah,
so
he is 82. Ryman knows it. Stingray, even Stingray, a man of his musical distinction and fairly young age, says that Hey Jude was the best song ever. Alan Long was guessing 86. Now, it was 82. I looked it up last night. But why is this day? Why are we celebrating this day, June 25th? What's that all about? Why is this the celebration? Well, killing two birds with one stone, Julie. We're doing it this day in history.
Yeah.
Because on this day in 1967, I wonder if anybody remembers this. I certainly don't. Don't let the old man in, Clayton. Back in 67,
Yes.
the BBC decided to have the first ever world satellite. Yeah, there's Pete Selwyn. Peter Selwyn, very smart. He got it. On June 25th, the Beatles performed their forthcoming single, All You Need Is Love, to an estimated, I've seen numbers between 350 and 700 million viewers live.
On the TV show.
Well, it was the BBC. Do you remember this? Here's the poster. BBC decided that they would have, for the first time, they'd try to get all the continents connected together, and they did. The Russians pulled out, the Soviets pulled out at the last minute, but via satellite on BBC One, and they organized a bunch of countries, I think 30 some odd countries, on satellite to have a live performance. And that not only originating from England, but they had live performances from all those countries via satellite.
Wow.
Never been done before.
I know, I didn't see that.
Was a big deal. I don't remember it at all, but it was on the 25th of June, 1967, the first worldwide live television show. Again, estimates vary between 400 and 7, maybe 350 is the number that Peter Selwyn was saying. But a lot of viewers via satellite, and this was in 67, 2 years before the landing on the moon, where they wired the world together to watch that live television coverage. But again, this was the technology used in this show was used in 69 for the lunar landing.
Oh, amazing.
So
I didn't know
it was,
that.
the program took, get this, 10 months to pull together, was transmitted to, 31 countries. No videotape or film, I didn't have videotape in those days, or film was used for the live broadcast. It took 10,000 technicians, producers, and interpreters to put on
Wow.
the TV special. And of course, we do it here from Studio B, a live worldwide feed
Yes.
to as many countries as want to tune in via the internet, with all those technicians there in the control room behind you.
Hey guys, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. There may be 10 back there, right, Julie? Certainly not 10,000. It was a big deal, and the Beatles maybe wrote that song. This is also not clear. The Beatles performed, as Peter Selwyn said, "All You Need Is Love" on that show. Through Our World, which was the name of the BBC show, the 2.5-hour long production, talent was showcased, including opera singer Maria Callas, painter Pablo Picasso, and the Beatles, who closed the show with their new song, All You Need Is Love, da 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 da, all you need is love, love, said to be composed for the event. The Beatles had been commissioned by the BBC, which originally started the production effort, to write a song for the UK's contribution that contained a simple message to be understood by all nationalities.
I think that's wonderful. I didn't know that story, and it's a wonderful one.
I didn't know that at all. Yeah, Alan Long says rumors that Paul died. Yeah, what was that? Was that the White Album when they played something backwards and recorded something backwards? The Beatles did show up at Goose Lake outside of Jackson, Michigan, but never played. Really? Are you talking about the Beatles, or are you talking about Beetles? Greg Norman, who's, of course, the host that fantastic YouTube show called Inside Great Lakes Sailing. Greg Norman. I haven't been on his show. He's been on our show, and at some point I promised to go on his. Alistair Murray. They played 2 concerts a day on their Australian tour. That is the Beatles. Concerts lasted half an hour. Is that right? Blake Middleton didn't know that story either, but damn cool it is. Thanks for sharing. I had no idea until last night when I was researching this segment.
Right.
For Global Beatles Day, the 25th of June each year, and I think it's been going on since, 09. And the reason is because of that BBC, Our World Global Satellite feed on this day in history.
It's a lovely message, and we should all do it every June 25th.
All you need is love, love, love is all you need.
Right.
And they not only did they do it live, and they were in the studio. There's video of it, but I didn't want to get a copyright strike. But there's video of them playing. What's the guy's name who was their producer extraordinaire? He was in the control room calling the shots. And after recording a couple of things on tape, then they brought in the orchestra, members of the London Symphony, I guess, some of them, who came in, and because that was an orchestral piece. And the Beatles apparently didn't like playing with other musicians, but they liked playing with symphonic musicians. And, just is astonishing.
Lovely.
The stuff they turned out.
Yes.
No, the real Ringo, John, Paul, and George were over by Jackson, Michigan, according to Greg. What year was that, Greg? Okay, George Martin. Thank you, Greg Phillips, down on the Gold Coast. The smart Fosey weighing in once again on,
that's lovely.
on Global Beatles Day, Julia.
Yes.
June 25th. We've never celebrated. Sometimes I think we've celebrated a couple of this day in history things more than once, like D-Day. I think we've hit that.
Yeah.
Not just this year when we hit D-Day, and then we hit D-Day plus, 3 or 4 when we were talking about the big evacuation. So, who else are we celebrating today? As always, we're celebrating the Fosey. All of you who support the show, watch the show, who've been on the show, they're the Fosey. And especially those of you who are patrons via patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Thank you very much for joining
More than
and
ever.
supporting. This crouton we are not celebrating. We hope he is on his way out. We're told he is on his way out, by the way, but talk is cheap. The non-sailing CEO has got to go. Cancel him. Code flag N. He's got to go. Finally, a program note. This Friday, we're not going to do a show because this Friday I am going to be in Michigan. I'm flying tomorrow to Michigan. My late great mother, who passed away in November last year, we are going to have our memorial service. The rest of the kids, my siblings and others, grandkids, are all flying in. And we're going to have her spread her ashes under her tree that we planted at my sister Ruth's farm last fall. And we're going to do that on this Saturday and preliminarily on Friday. So no show this Friday. I will do a show from Michigan next Tuesday and probably next Friday. And then the following Tuesday, which we'll get to, but probably the following Tuesday, no show because I'm going to be flying back here. Plus then, Julia, we got Governor's Cup.
Yes.
And Andy and I still, because of our conflicting schedule, we still haven't got the Road to the Governor's Cup other than that first show with Andy. So we're going to get the Road to the Gov Cup done between now and the last week of July.
And with how many?
12 sailors.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the reasons is, sadly, one of the sailors who was invited to Gov Cup in the meantime has passed away in a tragic accident down at his family's home in Miami. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And that's sort of taken it's set us all back a bit because he was a very cool kid and it's a big loss. But we'll tell you about that. Thank you, Mark Reed. Thoughts with your mom? Yeah, it'll be nice. Pedro Foiling Sailor, who struck up a friendship from afar with my mother. They used to talk and text back and forth. And Peter, you don't know how much she appreciated you and Julia and others with whom she communicated on this show, these last 7+ years.
Yeah.
Thanks, Blake Middleton, and on and on and on. Then, Stingray, yes, we've got SailGP coming up here in San Francisco. We're going to talk about that, but the middle of July, that's even before. And in 31 days from today, the Olympics start.
Yeah.
Then,
Yes.
60 days from today, the first race of the America's Cup Preliminary Regatta. So it is, as they say,
a busy season.
Well, they say down under, they say, it's all on. The Commonwealth commentators, Crutonic Commonwealth commentators, including the American, he doesn't say it, but Stevie, what's his name? It's all on. They get all, if they have to tell you in commentary, it's really exciting now, it's probably not all that exciting, or it hasn't been all that.
Yeah.
Just do the commentary. We'll figure out whether it's exciting or not.
Eventually.
Let's carry on here. No show this Friday, 28th of June, 2024. We will be dark. We'll be in the dark, literally. Mm-hmm. No, we won't be. We'll be in Michigan a couple weeks off, but I will do shows next Tuesday and Friday. I'm going to take a little studio kit so that we can do some live shows next Tuesday. They'll probably be shorties and fun, but next week. 31 days to the Olympics. Paris 2024. Triple busy. Yep, Alex Hayworth, we are going to be busy for the next couple months. 3 months, including the America's Cup. No one is busier than John Emmett, producing for us a segment every show, and he's done so again today, despite having to have his wrist MRI'd on Friday. Mm-hmm. And the results were a bit disappointing. Uh-oh. There he is, that photo that he sent us from in the hospital on Friday after we ran his report. And he tells me this morning he has a disassociated scaphoid. I thought that was a venereal disease, Julia, but you can wag your finger at me. A disassociated scaphoid. So it's his wrist. It could be wrist replacement.
Oh, no.
Yes. I didn't know I knew you replaced knees, right? And hips, but I didn't know you replaced wrists, and that sounds like very delicate.
I would investigate other opportunities.
Well, that's what he says he's doing. So it could be wrist replacement or fusion. Personally, he wants to, needless to say, he wants to avoid it. So Julie Aarons will be pleased because I went to her clinic. Oops, that graphic is Crutonic, but that says Cleveland Clinic up there. Scapholinate, I guess. Disassociation happens when the scaphoid and the lunate bones in your wrist move apart. I guess they're held together by tendons. Falls on an outstretched hand, I guess like that, is what can do it. But John, we're not going to say anything foul now about him being apart from Lily too much.
No, that you don't know. No.
We won't say that. That would be Crutonic to say that. But apparently falls on an outstretched hand often causes condition. Symptoms include wrist pain and swelling, which John's had in spades. Providers diagnose SL dissociation with a
It's
scaffolding.
dissociation.
Dissociation. Thank you, Julia. God, these Stanfordites are just difficult.
Picky.
Thank you. Dissociation with a scaphoid shift test, X-rays, and in John's case, they did also, I suppose, but they also did an MRI. It's not an STI, but it will affect his sex life.
Now, Graham.
Graham, sweet. How did the Lily's boat do in Newport to Bermuda? We're going to tell you about that in a minute when we get to that event. John, we're wishing you best luck.
Hi, Tom,
Of luck.
Julia, and all the Fozy. So I'm back here for a walk around on Imberhorn Farm. As I say, motion is lotion, and for my hip problems, I have found actually keeping active is the best thing I can possibly do. And it's those days that you have very little activity sat in front of a computer. Those are the days that I feel the worst and the most stiff. So back on the family farm, and I think this for me made me think very much about how it all begun. And I'm very thankful to have supporting parents who always encourage me with my activities. And I think one of the things which is really important is to try and be supportive as a parent rather than to be pushing. And now I know that sounds very similar, but it's whether you're pulling or pushing, a little bit like Japanese thumb torture, where to escape, actually you don't want to pull hard, because if you pull hard you never get anywhere. So going to take you for a walk and talk on the farm. And the way I got into sailing was through a youth organisation called the Nautical Training Corps, which is very much like the Sea Scouts, who actually have their centre, their national centre, in Weymouth, and they do some really wonderful things. So I would suggest anyone, especially in the UK, do check out the Sea Scouts. That's how I got started, and you know, that's my career today. And I found I love all things water. Nautical Training Corps was very similar. It's obviously a nautical organisation, very much like the Navy, and the Navy support the Sea Scouts. In fact, in the farm you probably saw we still look after, or did look after, canoes and things for the Nautical Training Corps. May even one day have one of their centres here for the Sea Scouts, actually on the farmland, and they did shooting and barn dances and all sorts. So yeah, it's funny to think how it all began. And that brings me on to John Emmett's Coaching Corner. Now, one of the things that I find difficult is naysayers. I always want positive, productive people, can-do attitude, and just to go and make the most of the situation we can. And the future of our sport, there is no doubt in my mind, is with youth sailing, junior sailing. And I make a difference there, because one of the things we do as head coaches and technical directors is look at how do we drive performance and what are performance indicators. Junior sailing is not an overwhelmingly good performance indicator. That means people who excel at junior level are not necessarily winning medals at the Olympic Games or another measure of high performance success. However, at youth sailing, that all changes. So I think we need a different mindset here. Junior sailing, when I used to run the zone squads back in the noughties, was all about making the kids so keen to take their covers off every single weekend that they were pushing their parents. And you know, what we did in a fun way, and that's a key coaching point. Actually, if you learn through play, the retention is so much better than just forced drills. Now, we can deep dive into what play is another time, but that learning and a fun environment is so important in junior sailing. In Olympic sailing, I still say the same thing, but I have the emphasis the other way around. We need to work hard and do it in a fun way as possible, which is not the same as having fun and then working hard. But the middle ground, the youth sailing, is perhaps the most important part of your career, because in terms of physically, the development there of your aerobic fitness and your flexibility is what will carry on for the rest of your career. And also, you know, that's just those good habits, because at that stage you're like a sponge and you can learn good technique, whether it's for sailing or whether it's in the gym or your aerobic activity. But that youth performance is important because you start to deal with pressure and you start to go into more high performance boats. And as I said, that's why I've always thought the Youth Worlds was a very special event, and it's a very good indicator of people we will see performing in Brisbane in 2032. So as ever, please, if you do one thing, try and support the young sailors in your club, however they want to get on the water. And with that, sail fast, have fun, and sail safe.
Okay. That sounds like me when I don't have that in front of me. I get those three. In what it doesn't matter. The concept is correct, and I think John's concept here is spot on.
It is.
I mean, I was a good sailor, still am a pretty good sailor, but I was a really good sailor when a kid. I had an Olympic program, and then I screwed my back up, and I was really, taken out of training for the Olympics and trying to do an Olympic program at that point. But all the things I've learned from people, not just sailing, but the self-reliance, the self-confidence, and all that stuff.
Right.
But you can go down the list of people with whom I've sailed, starting with my mom and dad and others, crewing for them or them crewing for me. And I keep bringing up George Carmody at New York Yacht Club,
Right.
With whom I campaigned New York 40, and he had a family program. He brought a bunch of kids, and I was pretty young then too, but he's maybe 20 years old. He's your age, maybe 20, maybe not quite 20 years older than I, but 15 or 20 anyway. And he brought all those kids together, and they were, there was a lot of cocktailing and partying late at night, and they're sleeping in the sails below. We'd go off and put our blazers on and go have a nice dinner in club or wherever, come back in the morning and never sure if the dust had settled yet in their heads. But suffice to say, after 4 or 5 years of sailing with George and Judy Carmody, all of us, and my act was pretty clean at that point, but all those kids not only cleaned up their acts, they all joined yacht clubs. They all became contributors, not in the financial sense too, but they became contributors in the programmatic sense, yes, in the leadership sense. And just because of George and Judy Carmody, and I spoke with them at length about them with Vice Commodore Harrington, who had dinner with them, in fact, the other night. And you can go right down the list. And a lot of parents are not sailing parents, it turns out. I thought everybody's parents were sailors.
No.
I thought everybody learned to sail from their parents, and that's simply not your parents.
No.
So if you are a sailing parent, you got to be supportive without being pushy or without being aloof and distant and not showing any interest at all.
Yeah.
Although apparently Dennis Connor's parents, for example, didn't really show any interest, and he still managed. But he would go down to the San Diego Yacht Club. He'd go over to the boatyards on Shelter Island.
Yeah.
And they all took him under his wing, and before you knew it, he had all sorts of mentors.
Right.
And, Lowell North and Malin Burnham and tell me who else. So, Ed Worley, youth sailing programs need to be fun first. Absolutely. Racing will then follow. They got to do a little of both, because sometimes, especially for the better sailors, it's the racing that is fun. So these programs that are just all, let's go chase the balloons downwind and don't have a little competition in them for the kids who really are turned on, I think that also can be a problem. Ed Worley, he's saying I was the only person in my family that started sailing.
I was too.
Ted Ryman got tired watching John walk. Julia, it occurs to me he's also getting old. He's got hip problems. He's got wrist problems.
Yeah, he's welcome to the crowd.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, John, we love him.
What I'm thinking about is that I'm getting familiar with the farm and the things that are coming into it. It'll be a national park any minute.
Well, he's developing it. That may be his next project after retiring from full-time coaching. So we'll see. Okay, thanks, everybody. Appreciate that. Joe Holtzman, I started sailing at Camp Michigania. I think he means the alumni camp, Camp Michigan. Was that Michigania? Joe, is that what it was called? And yeah, the Scouts, you know who's a big supporter of scouting? Scouts, Sea Scouts? Bill Koch. Because he went to a school in northwestern Indiana, a military school, and learned to sail there apparently, and then he's become quite a big supporter of Sea Scouts.
The Sea Scouts I know are still very big supporters of Sea Scouting.
It's great to see. No pun intended. Clayton Embley, I had plenty of sailing buddies once the girls went sailing with me.
That is also true.
That's what Paul Henderson said. He said, get the girls involved and the boys will follow.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. Okay, that's John Emmett, his report for today. Get to the front of the fleet with John Emmett Sailing. We appreciate very, very much. Warren Chasseur checking in from Brisbane. John, it is not your age, but the mileage on your body. Ed Worley is saying. Well, that could be true.
Yeah.
That could be true, too. And we, again, always appreciate John's reportage. No report on Friday, John. No show on Friday.
Yeah.
So don't send me a video, or if you do, I'll put it up on the website or on the Facebook page, rather. Okay, Julia, Bravo Zulu. We got to do Bravo Zulu to Pete Burling and co. because they have won now. I didn't realize that they've won fully 5 Sail GPs this year. So Bravo Zulu to them. Can you name which 5 they won? Can any of the Fozy name which 5 they won? Can you recognize the flags on those wheels? The flag colors on those wheels? Because I didn't remember that Pete won the first regatta of the year. He won in Chicago. When was that? Last fall sometime.
Yeah.
Last summer. Pete Burling's 5th, he's had 5 wins. It's his 5th season 4 win this past weekend in New York.
I hadn't realized that.
I hadn't either. And no wonder he's on the top by quite a bit. Clark Chapin, remember the best chaperone for a youth activity is someone young enough to know what the kids want to do and old enough to see that they don't do it. Huh? Mm-hmm. So Bravo Zulu to Pete and his superb Kiwi team, having won, of course, in New York, as most of you will know. There are the wins they've had in Chicago. Remember who won in L.A.? The second event was in L.A. I've forgotten all about that. The Spanish won in L.A.
Yeah, I was watching the Spanish. Yeah.
Chicago, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Christchurch in his home country of New Zealand, and then this past weekend in New York. I put this up on my Facebook page. Immediately they won that that final race, the big winner-take-it-all race on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And you can see they won by a lot over, I keep saying Cliff Robertson, but of course it's Phil Robertson, the Kiwi who's driving for the Canadian team. I think the Canadians are going to adopt him. He's doing pretty well. And Giles Scott, sailing for Great Britain, who've had a good run since he took over, since Sir Ben left helming the team, and put Giles Scott on the wheel. Bravo Zulu to them as well. They were the 3 finalists. Pete really won going away. I think they've just got better speed. You talk about whether he or Tommy Slingsby are the best the best sailors in the world today. It could be a toss-up, and we may see that toss-up resolved here in San Francisco next month. Okay, so the next slide is actually a video of day 1 recap in New York.
New York City Mubudlet Sail Grand Prix. And Emily Nagel, it was all about the start in race 1.
It was, and the Danish hit that line perfectly with speed and less than a second to cross the line. But with optimum position, the Brits led at Mark 1.
Well, and it was just then punished for mistakes. We see here the United States, they fall off the foils, error in that manoeuvre, and one mistake can turn a good performance into a bad performance. And it was Australia, they streaked away, but they couldn't do anything to catch Giles Scott and his British team. And then it turned into a tactical battle with Rockwool Denmark and Australia. And it was Emirates GBR that would get the win in race number 1. Race number 2, and once again, Stevie Morrison, it was all about the start. It was so important at the start, and it was all about timing here, and it was the Swiss making a late charge through. They were up and foiling fast when the gun went there, and they led at Mark 1. The Swiss took things away, but from here on, it turned into a tricky light wind battle.
And it was disappointing for the French team, who were the first to manoeuvre the wave, but fell off the foils, and a sign of things to come as across the fleet boats started to drop off the foils and really fight for every gust.
SailGP is powered by nature, and Mother Nature decided to take a little bit of a hiatus as the team scrambled to move to the front of the fleet because the race would be shortened, and that was great news if you were a Swiss fan. Nathan Outridge found a way to get back up on the foils, and after losing the lead to New Zealand, he took it back when the black foils had their own problem, and then race management announcing race shortened, and it was a straight shot then for Nathan Outridge to bring it home. A perfect time for race management to pull that, and Nathan Outridge was in the right place at the right time. Burling dead in the water, so it would be the Swiss that would win race number 2, and after 2 races, Canada would lead the way, Switzerland in second, New Zealand and Emirates GBR tied for third.
And of course, as you all know, there was no third race because the breeze had well and truly crapped out at that point. And it's never much fun when they're not foiling, frankly. But it actually worked out better than I thought it was going to. I was texting with several of you. We probably should have had a watch party. We talked about that. But it was slow. And it looked like it was going to be slow on Sunday, but luckily it filled in from the south on Sunday, and they had pretty good go, and we'll get to that in a minute. A couple of comments. Yeah, the weather is not usually like this. It often is. I think they lucked in with the weather. It was better weather than maybe some had thought or hoped. You be frozen. If we're frozen, I'm not dropping any frames here, so it must be somebody's local servers or internet or something. Sorry. The French starts were yet again amazing, particularly on day 2, Alistair is saying. Yes, indeed. And they keep saying that the starts are all important. You hear the commentators say that. I wish they'd stop saying that. Sadly, it's true.
It is.
But you know that, Julie, when the Swiss, who've been snake bit, and Nathan is a hell of a good sailor, obviously, but the team, the boat, whatever the problem is, they can't seem to get out of their own way. And when they win a race, you know something strange is happening.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what. Why aren't they racing? Newporter, John Hanfield is saying, why aren't they racing at Fort Adams? Oh, wait, money, not the sport. Yeah, they're going to get better money, and they've got network television coverage and yada, yada in New York City. Now, let's show you some of the things also that were attractive that we don't also often see in our sport. I mean, look at that shot, Julia.
That's great.
Huh?
Yeah.
That is a hell of a shot with Lower Manhattan there on the left. Obviously, Lady Liberty in the fore. If they said Lady Liberty one more time on that telecast, I would on that
Oh,
coverage.
well, it's
Lady Liberty!
it's her due.
There she is again. But, of course, it's iconic. It is
Yes.
New York. You see that. It's like the Opera House in Sydney or the Golden Gate Bridge here.
Yeah.
Probably the most defining, iconic site in New York, right? Since the Twin Towers went down, at least.
Yes.
Russell was happy, proclaimed it a huge success. They had the spectators, the Adrenaline Lounge on Governor's Island, which those of you who are local to New York, Peter Taylor and others will know is a big island there in lower New York Harbor. Was Lindsay driving the U.S. boat? Lindsay Vonn was on MS, was it no, it was CNBC? What was the show they were on? MSNBC, I guess, with Mike Buckley, the CEO of the American team. And yes, you're asking, John Emmett, why does the U.S. team get so much coverage? I think, to be fair, it's because they were in the U.S. venue, the home venue, and they'll probably get some coverage here in San Francisco as well. You are frozen here, too, stuck on a still from SailGP. I don't know why that is, because we have dropped 0 frames. So I don't know what the problem is with our feed. It looks intact and seriously good here. I don't know what the problem is. So there may be some... are you on YouTube or on Facebook? I apologize, but it is not us doing that. I'm just checking one more time on the stream. The integrity of the stream all looks good. and we have dropped 0 frames. So, network, and very few otherwise. So, hopefully it'll come back. We were stuck with the lovely Julia. That's good. I rebooted and all fixed on Facebook. All good here. Chris, right on. Anyway, Russell proclaimed it a big success. And again, he's got sponsors, this big one, Mubadala.
Yeah.
Say that 3 times, Julia.
Yeah.
Mubadala. And was on the water during the event. Cool venue. Mark Wharton Reed. Mark, that's good. So Russell's happy. Here is the wrap-up video from day 2.
Great racing action in New York City in the harbor. It all got with a great start. The Americans pushed to the bottom of the screen, and Stevie, once again, the start told the tale.
Well, yeah, the French came out swinging here, had a brilliant start. They led away, and I think the story of the day really was if you could lead around a gate, make your own decision at the bottom of the course, you had generally set yourself up for a good upwind leg.
Set themselves up for a good upwind leg, but they just made a few too many mistakes and really did slip back in the fleet. It was the same thing with multiple teams. You drop off the foils, you slip back. The teams that performed the best today had 100% fly time.
And those teams were Canada, Emirates GBR, and New Zealand. Despite the fact, Stevie, that the Kiwis once again did that magic trick where they'll fall back to 5th, 6th, or 7th place, and then they race back up to a top 3.
Yeah, they just managed to sort of sail well in the fleet a lot better than the other teams. That, you know, if they are in the pack, they struggle. And if we see the second start of the day here, it was so tight again, but somehow De La Pierre found a gap through the middle of the line. And just being on that inside position, when you've got a short run to Mark 1, if you're on the inside of that first turn, you have a good advantageous place. And De La Pierre did it again, kept the French in the hunt for that grand final. And it was a good performance by the French, but Australia, problems in race 3 of the weekend, but mistakes by the French allowed Australia through.
A serious case of deja vu. They're dropping off the foils at that bottom gate.
Aussies get the win, and Emirates GBR knew they'd just done enough. The top 5 would get them into the final with the Canadians and with the Kiwis. So after 2 fleet races, it all came down to the event final. Canada was in, New Zealand was in, as was Emirates GBR.
Perfect positioning here by New Zealand. Canadians were fast at the gun, but again, New Zealand were more aggressive with their positioning. Tactically, they were well set up, and from here, they made no mistakes.
Canada were faster, but they couldn't quite roll them on that first leg.
And it was this move here, Todd, where they really set things up for total control on board New Zealand. They set them up to line it up to turn right in front of them, take the wind from their sails, and in front of Manhattan, it was New Zealand that brought it home. Clinical performance.
93 points for the Black Foils. They are in to the grand final, no question about it, in San Francisco. The battle is who will join them. We'll find out July 13th and 14th in the city by the bay.
The city by the bay, the Mubadala. New York Sail Grand Prix is in the books, as they say. That was the standings going into that final race. So you had the Canadians, the Kiwis, and the Brits in that final winner-take-all race. And interesting, 4 different teams won races. Okay, again, that Swiss win was a bit strange given the conditions. Sadly, at the bottom of the leaderboard were the Americans, who have barely finished above last place in any of the races. They did manage a 9th, finishing, again, it was strange, above Denmark, who had a tough regatta. You can see they finished 10th in that race 4. And the U.S. just can't seem to get out of their own way. As Clark Chapin was saying a minute ago in the comments, maybe it has to do with the wing trimmer or the flight controller, maybe not just the driver. I think it's the coordination between all 3. And the Americans, I think, are spending too much time signing up sponsors. They got to do that. I get that. You got to promote. But maybe their CEO should be out doing media and signing up sponsors, not trying to also race on the yacht, Julia.
Yes.
You had your finger in the air a moment ago.
Oh, it's for that very reason.
You weren't going to wave it at me?
No.
You weren't. Good. I'm pleased. I can only take so many finger wags in a week.
Well, but get ready.
Huh? So, Bill Canfield, Taylor's esteemed father, no, that's what is tough. New teams get 20 days of practice, which is why new teams can't catch up with those with 4 years of competitive racing. That's also a point that Taylor and others have raised, Bill's son Taylor, because they don't get to practice between races. And yes, with Stingray saying after up there bit above there after the new BRA, meaning not Brazil, but Brazil, announcing which team is going to get excused because they've only got X many boats until later next year. So that will be interesting to see which of the teams which are owned by the league, such as Canada, whether or not they'll get excused or not in favor of the Brazilians, who apparently have corporate backers and are buying the team. There's talk about what the value of these teams are now, the franchise value, maybe as much as 30 or 35 million US. So that's
Really?
if that's the case, people who bought the teams for 5 or 10 have made real money. And we hope that's the case. We hope that is the way this goes forward. We hope the US does not go forward this way because that is not a good look. And I suspect they need to separate, just as we saw with Sir Ben Ainsley. They got to separate the management from the yacht racing.
Yeah.
Dennis Conner learned that
The hard way.
in 2000,
Yeah.
24 years ago, when he split his America's Cup team. He finally said, Kenny Reed, you drive the boat. He finally said to Paul, in fact, in 1995, even before that, he said, Paul, down in San Diego, you drive the boat. I'll go off play golf with my sponsors early in the morning, and you focus on driving. And it's too much to run a campaign and try to sail on the boat. You got to separate your ego, your business ego, from your sailing ego,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Well,
Talk
it's
the
been
talk, you got to walk the walk. Yeah, the U.S. team is safe because they do have an owner, although there's talk about changes on shore. One, I'm not going to repeat any of that. Poor performance pushes sponsors away. And I think Taylor maybe needs to regather his crew on that boat. And Taylor's a hell of a good sailor, and I think maybe he will get the chance to show that if not this, San Francisco's going to be tough because it should be breezy here, and that's a struggle for a new team especially, instead of the light stuff. Okay, speaking of San Francisco, here is the season championship coming into the last event, middle of July. Pete Burling with a huge lead. Big lead up there, 93 points to Tom Slingsby, still on second on 78 points. Diego Botín didn't have a great regatta last weekend, but he is in third on 76. And you would think those three are maybe a shoe-in. For sure, Pete Burling's going forward, but Tom Slingsby is not a shoe-in, nor is Diego Botín, because you got Quentin Delapierre.
Right.
And long shots, Phil and Nikolai behind them, the Canadians and the Danes on 67 points there, you see there. So let's see who it is. And I'm going to ask you in a moment after we play a couple more videos who you think will be the final three in that big race for $2 million here in San Francisco. And would you please stop calling it San Fran? You know,
I know.
Julia, the locals hate it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
What's the other thing they hate besides San Fran?
Frisco.
Frisco! The Frisco Kid. Yes, they hate having this. The cool thing is to call it what?
San Francisco.
Well, if you're lazy, though. If you're even more inclusive, you call it
The city.
the city, but the BA, or the Bay Area. Bay Area is the all-inclusive term that everybody uses. Here in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Stop calling it Frisco or San Fran, please. It's like your fingers going down the blackboard when you were in grade school.
What Clark Chafin?
St. Frank. Blake Middleton, who coached here for a long time at Stanford, at your alma mater, Julia. The city.
The city. Yeah.
Sanpan Disco? Where'd that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no new team ever went 10-10-10, then 10-10-9. Yeah, that's true, Stingray. It's sad. Red Bridge City. No, it's just the Bay Area, the BA. Everybody knows it as the Bay Area. BA, that sounds like Buenos Aires. Down in Argentina. Who, by the way, you see their food inflation has gone to zero. They got this new president who's cutting government, speaking of small government, and their food inflation has gone to zero this month. Amazing. The austere government budget, he cut like 20 or 30 or more of the government workforce. It was just unbelievable. Block and Cuddy. Ugh, what is that? David James says the city is correct. Yes, in the city. The Bay Area. Okay, enough. What's going to happen here? Well, let's do a little more wrap up, which also is a lead into this next event. A couple of videos. This one you all liked in previous events, so I picked it up again for here. And this is to do a setup. This is the skippers talking afterwards.
Pete, congratulations again. Has it sunk in that you pretty much can't lose a spot in the final?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're not just going to the final to be there. We wanted to go there to win it. So, you know, this weekend was our last chance to compete in the final before San Fran and to put on a performance like we did. And it's something that, you know, we're really proud of as a team, and to, you know, carry that momentum into San Fran now is something we're really excited about.
And what was the key for your team today? Obviously, it was tough conditions for everyone. Was it the starts? Was it your manoeuvres? Any insights?
Well, yeah, we got off the line well 3 times and just sailed clean races. We didn't have any big issues. It was definitely super hard on control with all the ferry wakes and the turbulence from the current and the water. So, yeah, you saw a lot of people having big issues with their manoeuvres and bits and pieces. And, you know, today we were just sailed clean races, got off the line well. Felt like both races we probably could have got a couple more points if we pushed it super hard, but, you know, we knew we were through to the final safe, so we just took it easy and you know, prepared for that.
San Francisco, obviously, it's expected to be windy. Can we expect anything in SailGP?
Yeah, I mean, if you're putting money on a venue being windy, it'll be San Francisco. You know, every day you go there, it traditionally is. I mean, one a month or something isn't. And we were lucky enough to get that a couple of finals ago, but yeah, it's going to be very different conditions to today, obviously. Nearly every time we've raced in San Fran, we've gone on a different configuration as well. So, you know, it's really about going back, making sure we're super dialed in on that config, and, you know, looking forward to the weekend and trying to wrap up the season.
Phil, you guys were leading all weekend and then slipped down to second. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, look, it was obviously a very good weekend for us. We performed really well in all the racing, and yeah, the final's a tricky one. There's 3 boats, it's slightly different, and that race you had to win the pin, and I was in a position to attack the Kiwis, and I actually decided not to, which is probably slightly out of character, and thought we could have a crack at pushing over them, and probably made a slight error just off the line. But look, it's there's not much in it, and the start was very important in that final.
I think you had a really good start and then just a little bit of a bow down. Is that just with the choppiness of the water, or just pushing the boat so hard?
With these boats, if you want to go fast, you've got to fly high. And we put the boat on the absolute limit and actually washed the rudder out. And what happens then is the boat just slides sideways and drops the windward hull in. So, yeah, we decided it was our moment to have a crack at it, put it on the limit, and we went too far.
Giles, another event final, but sounds like you're always gunning for that win.
Yeah, we are. We sailed really well this weekend, so we're super pleased with the whole squad. But yeah, would have been nice to have done a few things differently in that final, in a nice position, and didn't quite get the start we needed, and there just wasn't many passing lanes out there. So yeah, 3rd place here in New York, but I think another solid result that we can be proud of, but would have been nice to get a little bit more.
Okay, this goes on, Julia. Can we cut it off there, do you think? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think we will. They interview each of the skippers, but the only other one I really want to hear from is Taylor Canfield. So I've it's not exactly a fast forward. I did another cut of this video to do Taylor, and here he is.
Well, Taylor, New York, they delivered almost the toughest conditions. How did your team find it?
Yeah, super challenging. The conditions were just up and down, and quite a lot less wind than expected in a lot of the forecasts. So tricky, and I think we talk about this a lot, but the trickier the conditions right now for our team, the harder it makes it for us, and just not having that experience and those extra hours, it's tough to go through those transitions.
And as a driver, sort of, what you've got to do so many things on a day like today. Kind of talk us through your list of things to do.
Yeah, I'm working to balance all those things, but right now I'm really head in the boat, trying to focus on the moting and keeping the boat going well. And we acknowledge that we struggled with a lot of maneuvers yesterday, so I was very conscious of trying to get us just up to a good speed and maneuvering in good places, and trying to make it easy on the rest of the team.
Okay, so you can tell by his body language he's not exactly happy about what transpired, Julia, right? Before we go to the next video, I got one more video with Lisa Darmanen's. We've liked this video too. She does kind of an after-action report wrap-up. Jody Shields made a very important comment. I think it may be, no, it's still there on the list.
Yeah.
The Kiwis have a strong team in the coach booth. This can't be underestimated. It's no coincidence that the Kiwis started winning races once Ray Davies and Josh Jr. got in the booth. Well, that's not exactly right. I don't know when they got in the booth, Jody, both of them, but they did win that first regatta this year in Canada. Oh, Canada.
Yes.
And it was, it's been an impressive performance, but you're right, I think. I certainly agree. The Kiwis in those two guys, and Ray Davies and Josh Jr., have a very strong coaching team. Perhaps the strongest coaching team. I mean, Josh Jr., didn't he win the Finn Gold Cup? Ray Davies has been in coaching and sailing in the America's Cup and many, many other events for several decades. Besides, Ray Davies is a hell of a good bass player, so he can't be
Can't be all bad.
Can't be all bad. Sailor, bass player, maybe he plays ice hockey too. I don't know. Every time he says San Fran, take a drink. But they'll learn just to say Bay Area. But it does drive people around here. It doesn't bother me so much. I'm so used to hearing people say it. But when I got here 10 years ago,
yes,
I'll tell you what, people, don't say that.
I know.
I mean, really, they're aggressive about it. So, yeah, when you get here, you're better off saying Bay.
Frisco's the other one that really gets everybody.
Both. So don't say it. John Emmett, do you think they should have kept Jimmy for a few more races to help the rest of the team get up to speed? I don't think it was possible, John. More I'm hearing is that Jimmy said, I got to get my act together with the America's Cup and start focusing on the America's Cup and stop running around the world. It'll be interesting to see who all shows up. The Kiwis obviously are going to show up because they got $2 million at stake, so I think they will show up here and in San Francisco. But we shall see. Here in the Bay Area, Jody Shields, you often hear on the water team reference that the team often references Josh during the racing. He is an extremely important part of the team. Could not agree more, Jody. Josh Jr. Okay, let's go this other video as we're looking at the end of the previous one. This is Lisa Darmanen's kind of, as I said, after action report, her wrap up of the event in New York. Good video.
Welcome to the debrief for the Bermuda New York Sail Grand Prix. I think tricky really is the word of the weekend for all of the sailors out there. It was super challenging, but it was New Zealand that showed everyone how it's done, and they stamped their spot in that grand final in San Francisco in just 3 weeks' time. It was also an impressive feat by the British, backing up their win in Halifax with a final here. And interestingly, even though Australia didn't have the best result, they did leapfrog Spain and they are back in second. So to debrief it all, let's dive on into the tech side.
As they approach mark number 1, they go 3 wide here in the event final at the Mubadala New York Sail Grand Prix. It's New Zealand, it's Canada, and it's Emirates GBR. That is an amazing performance. That's 5 wins out of 12 events. The Kiwis take the win in New York City.
Well, I've just spotted the winning team coming off the water at New Zealand, fresh from their celebrations in the Adrenaline Lounge. Let's have a chat to their driver, Peter Burling, as he comes by. Well, Pete, we've had a few chats this weekend, but it's always a little bit easier when you win, hey?
Yeah, it's always a bit easier. We actually had a few stressful interviews this weekend with probably the one with Stevie just before the last start when the start software didn't boot up correctly and we had a few issues going on. We're trying to do practice, but yeah, it's always a lot more fun after the fact than in the middle of it. But yeah, it's good to get a few good races on the board this weekend.
Well, what does this win mean to the team? Obviously, you guys really commanded that final.
Yeah, I mean, the finals is what we've been trying to focus on as a team for a long time. Obviously, gutted to miss the opportunity to compete in one in Halifax, but to bounce back this weekend and put on the performance we did, we're super stoked to carry that momentum into San Francisco.
Well, it is all about momentum. Obviously, you were coming in second to San Fran last year. Now you're sitting at the top of the leaderboard. Does that feel pretty good?
Yeah, I think it means we're kind of going to the final a little bit more relaxed, but we definitely want to try and win that event as well. Try and get 6 6 season wins on the board, but we've had our eyes on San Fran for a long time this season. So close last season, so we're looking forward to getting another crack at it in a month or so time.
Thanks for your time, Pete. Enjoy the celebrations.
Awesome, thanks, Ed.
Phil, it was a tough end in Canada, but you made up for it here in the US.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, a little bit. Look, it's really tricky. The racing's super tight here in SailGP now. There's probably 7 teams that can win an event, and yeah, we were close in the last 2. Unfortunately, our home event, we didn't quite nail the last race, but we got it here and made the final, and yeah, then it's a sort of open book and anything can happen from there.
We've seen such different conditions throughout the whole season. Each venue has its challenges. This one was pretty tricky.
Yeah, it was. The first time that we sailed in a lot of current, and that changed the game quite a lot. And yeah, it was a bit of a one-way track out here, so you had to sort of hit the shore and go left, and yeah, that made it quite easy in the final when you're in front. So not a lot of passing lanes, but yeah, very cool to be racing in front of the city.
I used to have a saying, second sucks, but does second feel okay today?
Second doesn't suck as much as fourth, so
That's
or third,
true.
or third. So yeah,
Well done, Phil. Thanks for chatting, and we'll see you in San Francisco.
will do.
Emirates GBR, off the back of their win in Canada, made another final, so let's head on over and have a chat, see if they're happy with their result. Congrats, Goobs, made another final. How's the team feeling? Would you like the win or happy?
Yeah, probably a little bit bittersweet. You never want to come third in the final race, but it feels like we're sailing the boat well, and Giles is doing a good job getting on top of the F50. So yeah, we're in the mix with a lot of other teams right now, and for us, there's a lot of upside and not much downside because we're kind of just off the back. But all to play for in San Fran, and hopefully we keep the consistency up there and just execute a bit better in that last race.
Well, nothing to lose, that's what it sounds like. But Halifax, it was windy, it was erratic. Here it was light and fickle. Nice to do well in different conditions.
Yeah, I mean, it was very tricky.
Okay, well, you can go back and watch all of that video. It goes on for another 2.5, 3 minutes, but good stuff. And Lisa,
She's really good.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you.
Yeah, no.
Did we
she is-
rehearse that in the?
No.
No, she does a nice job, and that's a skirt. And David James, Phil doesn't have the legs to pull it off.
Thank you so much for following along all weekend. I cannot wait to bring you the SailGP Season 4 Grand Final in San Francisco in just 3 weeks' time.
And she never once said San Fran in all of this reporting that she did. So bravo, Zulu, to her. Mm-hmm. So here's what we've got. I'll show you this chart again. It looks like, the Kiwis are for sure in.
Yeah.
And Aussies probably, the Spanish maybe, but who knows? And then you got France and Canada and Denmark.
I was sort of thinking about the Spain because they made maybe the most remarkable comeuppance.
They have had, exactly. I mean, they did win that second event. They did win the LA event. It was light. It was strange in LA. But nonetheless, you're right. And, I'd love to see the Spanish in. I'd love to see Phil Robertson get in, but I don't think so. I think it's really going to be, Julia, between Spain and France. Of those two, who would you rather see?
Just because it's got to be in Spain, I'd say Spain.
Well, it's going to be here.
I know, but I mean, just because Spain's coming up.
Because they're coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, San Francisco is sort of Spain these days. We got, we got a third Chinese, a third Hispanic, and a third European population, isn't it? Did that right?
Almost, yeah.
You don't sound enthused.
Well, I haven't looked at the exact figures lately, so I don't know. But it's...
Okay. Well, I will press on here, and I'm going to ask the Fozy now. We're going to do a Fozy poll and ask you who will be the final 3 in San Francisco. Who do you think? Obviously, the Kiwis are in for sure. And the question is, who else? Will Tom Slingsby also be in? Looks like he will be. He performs well in a breeze, and assuming it is breezy here. Remember, in previous years, the event here has been earlier in the season. Now it's in middle of July when things have ramped up. It's heated up inland, and the way the sea breeze, as you all know, works in the Central Valley here, it gets hot. It gets 100, 110 degrees Fahrenheit, so it gets up into the 30s. and approaching 40 inland centigrade. And the water offshore is only 55, maybe 60 degrees this time of year. So it's a conveyor belt of cool air being sucked in by the rising air inland and right under the Golden Gate Bridge and, of course, beyond. So it should be breezy. It normally is breezy. It has been breezy now here for a couple months. Right, Julia?
Yes.
So who's it going to be? Ryman says Australia and Spain.
That's pretty much agreement.
Is it? Jody Shields, who is a bit of an expert, having done commentary, he says the Kiwis, Aussies, and Spain. Greg Phillips says France. Who do you say, Julia? You say Spain, not France.
Yeah, I don't know, but I just think they've had a speedy recovery.
Well, here's my choice for what it's worth. I think that it'll be Australia, obviously, and New Zealand. Australia is not obvious, but they probably will be, especially if it's breezy in the preliminary racing. Mm-hmm. My guess is France.
Okay.
I think because they have been a good heavy air team, don't forget.
They have.
They've been a good heavy air team, so I agree with Greg Phillips. I think you may well see the French and Quentin Delapierre and co.
Who's very good.
Who's very good. And you may see him, Julia, and their French team in the $2 million final here in San Francisco coming up the 13th and 14th of July, just in 3 weeks. The season 4 grand final for that $2 million prize. We will be watching at St. Francis Yacht Club. Tickets are on sale now for the lounge. It's on that same area between St. Francis and Golden Gate Yacht Club out here on the out there on the Yacht Club Peninsula.
Yes.
And we'll be watching in St. Francis, where they have a bubble lounge.
Mm-hmm.
They have a champagne lounge down in the starting line room for the la-di-da who want to spend some money and watch it among their yuppie friends. Mm-hmm. And you and I will probably be up on the race deck cooling our jets where it's cold and windy.
I know.
And maybe I'll be doing a little commentary for that again.
That'd be good.
As well.
Yeah, that would be good.
Mike Radiani, I think, is going to be doing that as well this year. I hope the Bay Seals are all dockside. Yeah, they are. We don't have Bay Seal problems. I mean, it was the whales last year. Didn't we have a whale in the Bay?
Yes.
Wasn't that the case last year? Never underestimate the French sailors. Ryman's agreeing, I think. I think he is agreeing.
Yes.
Julie Aarons says she says Canada. Really? In the breeze? Okay, maybe, Julie. Blake Middleton and the teams will no doubt sail to San Francisco on their own foils, right? No, I don't think so, Blake. I don't think so. Okay, now enough of SailGP. That is our extensive report on the event last weekend in New York City. You see that, the lower third I did on the cover slide and the promo slide, Julia?
Yeah.
I had on there, as a couple of you know, because I send it out to whoever's online when I'm preparing the show at night.
Yeah.
You know, I'm preparing it yesterday afternoon and last night. And I saw Ed Worley on, and I saw Stingray on, and I can't remember who all else.
Yeah.
Especially Aussies. I think Alistair, I sent it to Alistair and maybe Jody. And I said, what do you think? First of all, is this the lead story?
Yes.
Or is it something else? Because sometimes I like the whole thing with Claire, what's her name? Claire Cole.
Yeah.
What was her name? Cole Claire. Cole Claire. Claire Cole. Sometimes I don't even know about some aspect of the sport that's going on that is of great interest to everybody, and that was Sangmeister's kid, youngest, William, who turned me on, Bing Bong, turned me on to all of that. So I changed this lower third, though, from the Black Foils win propels them into the finals to lifts them, thinking I was clever, Julia.
Yes.
And that you would be impressed with that verbiage.
I try.
Being the grammarian and the wordsmith that you are.
Yes.
The racing on Sunday in New York City was outstanding. Yeah, Cole Brower. Thank you, Alan Long. Thank you, Blake. Cole Brower, who was helping with the Bermuda race commentary. She was out on the water and the audio connection was croutonic, and they quickly brought her in and put her in the booth next to Kenny and co, and that was a big improvement, as you will soon see. So let's go to that story now, shall we? We told you on Friday, in fact, we were sort of covering it as it was happening or shortly after it was happening. For the first time, they moved the start of the Bermuda race, which was the 53rd edition. They moved it in to the East Passage, right off Fort Adams, between Newport and Connecticut Island, between Jamestown, just north of the, or just south rather, of the Newport Bridge, organized by the Bermuda Race Foundation, which is the Cruising Club of America, the CCA, and the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club, basically, with New York Yacht Club helping a lot. The 636-mile biennial Newport Bermuda race is the oldest regularly scheduled ocean race and one of the very few international distance races. The Bermuda race is one of just two of the world's regularly scheduled races held almost entirely out of sight of land, the other being, of course, Transpac from LA to Honolulu. Founded in 1906, the 53rd running of the Bermuda race was scheduled for June of 2024, last week. It just wrapped up really today. Boat's still finishing, in fact. And for the first time in the 118-year history, the start was just off the shoreline, allowing for public viewing at Fort Adams State Park. And the viewing, they had a lot of viewers, a lot of visitors. Do you know in that slide, Julie, up there at the top, you know what that is, where the tent is down on the foreshore?
No.
That is Harbor Court.
Oh.
I'll go back to that slide. That is Fort Adams that we're looking over with that lower third, and then that is Harbor Court on the south end of the harbor. On the left side of the slide there is the southern tip of Goat Island, and then downtown Newport is back there behind in the background there in the upper left. So that's Harbor Court, that fantastic Brown family mansion bought by New York Yacht Club in 1988, and is one of the most magnificent clubhouses of any sport.
Absolutely.
In the world,
It's
up there on the hill. You know, on the grass, you see the grass there?
Yeah.
Do you know what the kids do in the wintertime with that? They get trays.
I was going to, snowboard
From
sort of,
they get trays from inside from the kitchen, and they use them as sleds and go down the.
Yeah.
It's great fun. It's actually a family-friendly club and clubhouse, and well done to New York.
The notion of racing.
The Bermuda race. I didn't set that up. That starts on transition. Just in the last couple days after the start of the race, the CCA, the Bermuda Race Foundation, released this nice 2-minute history of the Bermuda race, narrated by our good friend Gary Jobson.
The notion of racing pleasure craft in the ocean was considered too dangerous for amateur sailors in the early 1900s. In 1906, Rudder magazine editor Thomas Fleming Day disagreed with that thought and organized a sailboat race from Brooklyn, New York to the subtropical island of Bermuda. 3 boats of 28 to 40 feet in length made the passage that year. One of the 13 crew on the 3 yachts was 20-year-old Thor Lund Robinson, who overcame skeptics that a woman was up to the task of racing offshore. Tom Day's concept was successful, and interest in offshore racing blossomed. In 1923, another editor, Herbert Lawrence Stone, was elected Commodore of the newly formed Cruising Club of America. He created a partnership with the Royal Bermuda Yacht Club to take over the running of the Newport to Bermuda race. The Thrash to the Onion Patch, as the race has been nicknamed, has thrived ever since. Every 2 years, at least 1,500 sailors take part in this 635-mile contest. The fastest elapsed time for the course in a monohull was set in 2016 by the 100-foot Comanche in 34 hours and 42 minutes. In 2018, multi-hulls were allowed to compete. In 2022, a new course record was set by the multi-hull Argo. The Mod 70 became the first boat to finish on Saturday in just over 33 hours. The race has no overall winner, just division winners, though the winning yacht in the St. David's Lighthouse Division, the largest among the 8 divisions with over 100 boats dedicated to amateur sailors, is often regarded as the top boat. This coveted trophy is a treasured feather in any sailor's cap. In 2022, Stan and Sally Honey won this coveted trophy. Stan was also the navigator aboard Comanche, but with the Honeys not sailing this year, it's anyone's race to win.
Nice report by Gary, our longtime Fozy. You realize I've known him 52 years.
It's amazing.
Since we were racing against each other in college in 71. That's 53 years, isn't it? Holy,
good heavens.
Good.
He's done well, though.
He has. I mean, he won the America's Cup with Ted Turner in 77. And from there, he went on to be a coach and an author and a lecturer.
And a broadcaster.
And a broadcaster, of course, famously on ESPN.
Yeah.
And that's where he really, I guess, in this country became famous, because he was down under. And that first talk about satellite television, that was, 1987, 86, 87. And they're broadcasting live from half a world away, from sunny, beautiful, warm Perth, where it's the middle of their summer, and everybody in the Northeast, at least here in the U.S.,
yeah,
and on the West Coast, but those of us stuck in the Northeast in the snow and the gloom of winter, look at this fabulous wind and waves and sunshine. There's Gary in the swimming pool with a boat trying to show everybody how match racing works.
Yeah.
Gary Jobson, the voice of American sailing. Yeah. Fozy's been on this show any number of times, and as I said, a dear friend, and a nice video. I think you would all agree. Yes, Stingray, that picture I showed you a minute ago is Harbor Court on the south end of the harbor in Newport, lovely Newport. There's the bridge in the background. You've not seen that in the Bermuda race before, because they started outside of Castle Hill, out in Rhode Island. Rhode Island, as the localers say. The locals say. You know what they call a water fountain? A bubbler. It's clean. You looked like you were thinking I was going to say something dirty.
Oh, no. I know.
Huh?
A bubbler. That's a nice.
A bubbler. They've got a lot of strange words in Rhode Island. Nice. We really loved living there. Cold and windy in the winter, but you can play hockey. So that was the scene off Newport Bridge. Now, these photos are from Michelle Almeida, who's another Fozy who's contributed Chicago Mackinac photos and a bunch of others over the years to us here, and a true friend of Sailing Illustrated, Michelle, and her husband. We appreciate very much. Now, this is one of the two boats. This is Proteus, Udall Frolic 72, was dismasted not too far off of Newport. No injuries, motored back to Newport. Another boat, a J something or another, several of you were talking about it, I think, in the comments, but another boat apparently sprung a leak in their rudder bearing in the back end, and they saw the water was coming in, so they maybe overly cautious. Maybe the boat's still floating, I don't know, but they decided to abandon ship, and another J boat picked them up and carried on, sailed to Newport. Luckily, this year, fortunately, nobody was seriously injured, nor there were no deaths. There was last time, was a sailor lost overboard in the previous Bermuda race, so that happily did not happen this year. Another Michelle Almeida photo. This is the famously good and well-sailed Allegra, owned by, I think he's Swiss. Tell me if I'm wrong, Adrian Keller. From memory, I put SUI on there because I didn't have time to check it out. But this is a boat that has won in the Caribbean extensively and RORC racing down there. If Andrew McIrvin is watching, he will know. And they also won the Fastnet race in the multi-hull division last year, right? 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Baton Rouge is saying that he's heard that J-boat that they abandoned with the leaky rudder bearing, indeed the boat did ultimately sink. This boat won line honors. Very, very well sailed. They got a bunch of really good sailors on that. Here's another sight you haven't seen. Well, I just wanted to show that again. That's Fort Adams. Look at the crowd.
Yes.
Look at the crowd there, Julia.
Yeah, that's neat.
That's the fort, and over behind the fort, of course, is where Harbor Court is, and Brenton Cove and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter Taylor was there, I think, at least on Saturday, said it was an amazing scene. He enjoyed it very much indeed. So bravo Zulu to them, multi-hull line honors. They've only had multi-hulls in, a couple races now, three races. That is, you know what that is? That's the last thing you see on the left going out of the East Passage of Narragansett Bay. You've gone down from Newport, a couple miles past Hammersmith Farm, which was the Jackie Onassis, Kennedy Onassis's home farm, family farm. And then this is Castle Hill. you see on the left, and the spectators used to sit there and write messages on the lawn to the 12 meters back in the 12-meter days. And it's a fabulous spot, a great hotel, a great restaurant, and just you can see this site. This is amazing. As Peter Taylor is saying, the crowd was robust. Yeah, they didn't have a lot of tacking in this race. The J122 sank. I believe Bill Canfield is saying all crew it was picked up by another J-boat. What a feeling of support, Alan Long says. Great crowd at Fort Adams and at Castle Hill. When you see that and you're sailing out of the East Passage, it's fabulous.
Yes.
Okay, here is a video from the start of that race
Look at all the people.
on Friday.
Welcome to all of fans of sailing. We've been waiting a long time for this start to come into Fort Adams.
Gorgeous start here out of Fort Adams on Narragansett Bay. Absolutely iconic amphitheater.
It's just a perfect place for a raceboat start. We got a really, really trustworthy 10, 12 knot southwesterly here today that is going to make it interesting for sure for all these boats off the starting line.
I got a chance to be out on the water on a boat for a second watching the first two starts, which was beautiful. This squally, thundery area hadn't come over yet. We had a beautiful, beautiful start of the day. This tide that's flushing in, I would imagine that a lot of these boats are going to try to get closer to line since they're being pushed off.
They're lined up for the pin, no going back. A lot of boats on port, opting for the safe start.
Those people who want to follow this race, you go on the website and there's a tracker. You can follow your friends, you can follow your family, you can just stay up with the race.
It's been an outstanding day. That gray sky held off just long enough to get everyone underway. And we saw some really impressive starts out there this day with some sailing at its finest. We're going to thank the weather gods and the state of Rhode Island and Narragansett Bay. It's been a real pleasure sitting here with you guys watching some incredible sailing. Thanks, Kenny. Thanks, Cole. Go Celtics.
And of course, the Celtics did win. But Jesse Fielding, yes, he also did a great job. I don't know Jesse. We may have met somewhere along the line, but I don't really recall having shared a beer, let alone a dinner with him. And that's when you get to know somebody, right, Julia?
Right.
Huh?
Yes.
I didn't know you till we shared a few cocktails over at St. Francis Yacht Club with your late great husband. On the end of the bar, you were holding court as Yacht Club royalty.
Yes. I remember you from before, what you don't remember me doing it, but you were trying to walk back to your hotel one day and just looked a little struggling. And so I said,
struggling?
Can I give you a lift? Oh, no, that's not necessary. Oh, but I will.
Just back to the Cow Hollow. It's only 4 or 5 blocks from here. Well, it was probably cold. Tell me it was cold.
I don't think so.
Yeah, the coverage and the commentary for the race was nice. Totally agree, Ed. It was laid back. They're sailors. They know each other. When Cole Brower was having problems, she said she was on the water for the first couple starts. They came in, and we were getting pictures from our Fosey by now super Fosey, Claire Harrington, Vice Commodore of the New York Yacht Club, who's got a great relationship with media and beyond. And thank you, Claire. I know you're on here. That was really nice to see photos of you and your team. She was the DRO, the deputy race officer, for that start. New York starts the boats in Newport of the Bermuda race. Lori Fullerton, there's a name I haven't seen in a while. Lori, really nice to see you on. The assistant editor of Sail Magazine, Lydia Mullen, was on the boat that sank. They are all in Bermuda now, thankfully.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. Got to pay to host these regattas. You had to see the setup in New York. Yeah, Bill, it was impressive, no doubt. But bloody hell, sailing is, Newport is among, if not, the spiritual heart of sailing in this country. Any other comments? the spiritual heart of sailing. Hey, Tom, what caught your eye soonest when you first got a glimpse of Julia? Her scarf. No, it was her lively personality. She has bright eyes. Seriously, she was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed at the end of the bar. This was the better part of 15 years ago, I guess, right? And I didn't really know you until...
No.
You were at some of the... we digress. Let's carry on here, but that's ancient history by now. So, Bravo Zulu to them. A couple more pictures from Michelle Almeida. Pyewacket, no surprise, was monohull line honors winner, Roy Disney's boat, and he's both the owner and the driver, and they've got some very fine sailors. They're all in the pro division, as you all know. Gary distinguished the difference between the pro division and the bigger, much bigger 100-boat amateur division. Mm-hmm. And in the pro division also, they were first to finish, but you see there at the bottom, Canaan Global Sailing. Mm-hmm. That's the yacht on which our Fozy Lily Zhu, Golden Lily, was sailing. Yeah. They finished 12th. That was to finish. That was in line honors as well. They were 12th to finish overall. I don't know how they did on corrected, but there she is at the bottom, or their boat is at the bottom of that list of some 100 and what, 30 or 40 boats overall?
Yeah, that's really well done. Yeah.
So bravo Zulu to them. The Gibbs Hill, which is the amateur division, you've got the Lighthouse. We'll tell you about that in a moment. But Michelle Almeida's photo here of Summer Storm. This was the boat that Andrew Burden's boat here, which is also a Udall Frolic boat, I believe, a 52. It won overall, corrected. And there you see monohull line honors was to Pyewacket, second overall, and that is in the Gibbs Hill. Winner was Summer Storm. So bravo Zulu to them. And in the SDL, which is the big 100-boat division, Carina, owned by past Commodore of New York Yacht Club Reeves Potts and skippered by Barrett Holby, they won on corrected. Skipper is a discriminatory term. Come on. Clark Chapin, when I first met Tom, he was a 14-year-old with a 14-year-old's attitude, but I recognized, what's that mean, Clark? Oh, man. Driver. Okay, so much for the Bermuda race. Anybody else want to chime in with a cogent comment? Not any more from Clark Chapin about me being a 14-year-old.
With a 14-year-old attitude.
With a 14-year-old. And now do I have a 70-year-old? What is a 14-year-old attitude? I hate to ask, Clark. I was probably brash and full of myself.
Yes, I'm sure you were.
And, Mm-hmm. Okay, enough of that. And we carry on here to the America's Cup. There's not a lot to report, but their yacht, that is Emirates Team New Zealand's yacht. I had a blue blazer on at age 14. I know that. I was born in a blue blazer. Their yacht did show up, as Stingray has been guiding us along, and it is the yacht arriving. This photo is courtesy of the New Zealand Herald. I think the team probably sent that out. Team New Zealand is AC-75 Te Horo. I don't know if they roll their R's in Maori or not, Julia, but it has arrived in Barcelona, and according to the New Zealand Herald, the boat... Stingray, I put this in for you. The boat was shipped on a kiwi fruit reefer. You know what reefer means?
I certainly do.
Well, you do. Your late great husband was there.
He introduced it.
A reefer, and not a reefer jacket, as the Brits would say, and not reefer as in pot in this country.
It's a refrigerated.
Exactly, a refrigerated ship in order to get a direct trip to the port of Tauranga, arriving 28 days after leaving New Zealand. During that time, Team New Zealand focused on two-boat testing with their AC-40s in Auckland, which will also be shipping to Barcelona aboard another kiwi fruit reefer. Did you know that, Stingray? I didn't know that. The arrival of Te Horo in Barcelona marks the start of an intense 4 months for the team, who are now all on their way to Barcelona, also to join the advance party that has been working to prepare the base and its operations over the past few weeks. Here's some quotes. Speaking to the Herald, Team New Zealand designer Dan Bernasconi said there were pros and cons to the challengers not yet seeing them on the water. Yeah, you think? At the Cup venue. Although the team felt it was more of a disadvantage than a positive. Yeah, right. Quote, the other teams are able to get a gauge on each other. Yeah, right. They're not allowed to go and race each other in informal races, and there are rules controlling how close you can get to the other yachts, and you're not allowed to do a lineup with them. But even with those rules in place, you can see them sailing and just decide to go up to them and start sailing close to them, and you might get a gauge. Dan Bernasconi, the head of their design team, their technical director, said. So there's been this thing, Ray will tell you, there's been a bit of a controversy in the forums about whether Team New Zealand, because the recon program has now ended. You know, that joint AC-sponsored recon program? That has now ended. And there is some controversy about whether or not Team New Zealand planned that date to end recon as their yacht was going to be showing up, and they would have known months ago that was happening. I don't think so. I think having stayed in New Zealand, that was probably smart. I think there will be plenty of recon going on now. No one's going to build new foils based on what they're seeing at this period or even in the most recent period. And that New Zealand Herald article is a much longer article, by the way, by Christopher Reeve, spelled differently than Superman. Christopher Reeve, the late great actor, in the New Zealand Herald today. Now this, Julia,
sir,
is the colorful Team New Zealand base.
Aha.
What do you think of that?
I think that's colorful.
In Barcelona, that's the first look I've had at their base. I guess there have been other photos of it that I haven't seen, but I probably wasn't paying attention. That's their base with 60 days to go to the start of the preliminary regatta. That is that last fleet race where everybody's sailing together and in Barcelona. 60 days. 30 days to the Olympics, 31. 60 days to the America's Cup. And as we say, we got a SailGP and a Gov Cup in between. Teams do not have time to start building new foils. Yes, Ed Worley. Too much lead time needed to manufacture. Yes. Wow, you wouldn't want to see that early in the morning if you're feeling a bit dusty. Clark saying about their team base. I think you're right, Clark.
Yeah.
What will Spain send back to New Zealand? Surplus paparazzi. You know, as Hamish said the other day, Julia, they're having a tough economic time in New Zealand. Wouldn't it be nice if the Cup were there?
Oh, it would.
Wouldn't it be nice? Not true with the info, the AC Spy Pro Recon program feeding Team New Zealand information. Yeah, I'm not too worried about all that, Ed Worley, because there's been some other reconning going on, I am sure, and I wouldn't get too exercised about it one way or another. The smart teams are still smart and in the know. Anything else? Wonder if Dalton tipped the driver. Reply. What's her? Oh, a 14-year-old sense of humor. I don't know what that means. They're still arguing about me being a 14-year-old.
You really were once.
Barely. Barely. Okay, enough of all this madness.
Is that a scaffolding in front of that?
You want to go back and look at that?
Yeah, all those pipes. It looks like.
I think that's the build.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a temporary build, reinforced, and that becomes a deck. I'm not really sure if that's scaffolding it, but it looks like they've got stuff on the end. So it looks like it's helping to support the structure in the front. I'm not a construction engineer, but somebody will know, maybe Stingray. But it is a wild-looking team base. I agree with Clark.
Yeah.
If you're a bit dusty and you're looking across the Port Vel at that, you would be wondering if maybe you're having a flashback. Speaking of 14 years old, I never did drugs. Never did drugs. I don't even drink alcohol anymore.
I know, it's boring.
I know. Just before we leave the America's Cup segment, Julia, how are you doing on your book? Magnus's magnificent book.
I'm only about a third of the way through it.
I've read 5 chapters now. I'm reading a couple, 3 chapters a night.
Good for you.
And it is. People have said it's a little heavy going because at least in the early chapters, he's setting the stage for the Great Exhibition and then for the America's Cup. And it really does give you, I mean, we've known this kind of not in such great detail about how the Americans were looked down upon by the Brits. I mean, this was Queen Victoria. This is Britannia rules the waves.
Junior.
And the Americans were just coming into their own, and there was technology in the States. There was entrepreneurial, industrial revolution stuff going on over here that they didn't much recognize. The Americans, according to Magnus's book, had way over promised and underperformed in their exhibition space. They booked a big space and they had a sewing machine and a couple, 3 other things in it that were not apparently, more than a couple, 3 things, but not that impressive, right? So it was an interesting year, and the whole lead up to the opening of the Crystal Palace in Hyde Park by Her Majesty the Queen, because her husband really was maybe not the brain, it wasn't his brainchild, but he was certainly the proponent of it. And they were all surprised when she showed up, when he announced a couple, 3 days ahead of time that she was going to open it. Really? Because royalty didn't mix with the hoi polloi in those days.
Right.
So Chris actually has finished the book over the weekend. Yes, it's a little heavy in spots, but enjoyed all the detail. Yes, detail. A little difficult to keep straight. Yeah, exactly, Chris. I'm glad you said it because that's what I struggled with in the first 2 or 3 chapters. You had all these British characters, and you had the dukes and the lords, and what's the plural of marquises? Marquesas? I don't know. But it was a little, but interesting nonetheless.
Yes,
to
absolutely.
see how they all played a role. And leading up to the procurement of the trophy in 1848, as we all know, that had happened. But again, the great detail and the fabric, the texture of all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes. Ed Worley has finished the book as well. So David James is recommending Bill Bryson's Home for a survey of 1850. You know who's a big fan, David James, of Bill Bryson? Besides myself, I've got 2 or 3, 4 of his books on the recommendation of Hamish Ross, who is a huge fan of Bryson. The book is there. It's out. Go get it if you haven't. And it is a magnificent new read on the Cup in 1851 and beyond. Great stuff. Magnus the Magnificent.
Absolutely. I still love his prose.
And we're still looking forward to your book report.
I know.
That's another thing we got to do between now and the America's Cup is your book report.
Yes.
We got a lot on here, Julia.
We do. And we've just finished a lot on.
And we're 1 hour and 43 minutes into this show. I said it was going to be a short show.
I know.
Huh?
You always say that.
I lied. I didn't know. We gas bagging a lot today. 1443 here in San Fran, in the Bay Area, on the West Coast. And we are to the last leg. This great painting by Thomas Hoyne, an 1982 painting. It's not all that old. Some sad news here. First of all, I didn't know the young fellow, but we've had a couple, 3 deaths of young people in the sport. We talked a little bit about the sailor who was going to skipper in the Gulf Cup, who passed away, tragic accident, a couple, 3 weeks ago now. But also a member of a family in Newport, Rhode Island, a superb sailing family. We'll talk about his passing in due course. But this has gotten a lot of ink. He's an American who emigrated to Tonga and is a kiter, and apparently I hear is a very popular figure on the kiting, or was on the kiting circuit, until he died in a diving accident, another diving accident, here a week or 2 weeks ago, and here is the video. Entertainment.
Olympic-bound kite foiler J.J. Rice has died. He was 18 years old. The United States-born athlete who was set to represent Tonga at the Paris Olympics this year died in a diving accident. His father, Darren, confirming the news to the Matungi Tonga newspaper. JJ died Saturday after free diving from a boat, suffering what's suspected to be a shallow water blackout, which happens when a person loses consciousness while underwater due to a lack of oxygen. JJ's sister Lily reflecting on the pain of her brother's death on Facebook, writing in part, "He was an amazing kite foiler and he would have made it to the Olympics and come out with a big shiny medal." JJ had been competing and training in Europe ahead of the 2024 Olympics. The Paris Games will be the first time kite foiling will be featured in the worldwide competition.
J.J. Rice, 2006 to 2024, and E.T. When E.T. covers something like that, you know it's real news. But what's interesting, it's tragically coincidental, perhaps. I don't know, but the other two deaths of the young sailors we were talking about, all three of them have been shallow water related, blackouts or something. And I'm not quite sure. We're going to look to see what the problem was. But one of the other three was a shallow water diving or a free diving accident.
Free diving.
Yeah.
That would be pretty easy to happen, but it shouldn't happen. There's enough safeguards around that.
Well, who knows? But we'll keep an eye on all that. But it is tragically, as I said, coincidental that all three of these young sailors have died by drowning, in effect, in the recent weeks. And that video, courtesy of Entertainment Tonight, which is a long-time broadcast here in the States. Julia, just to wrap it up with a little happier news, the J-boats were racing at the Super Yacht Cup Palma, won by Svea, the Swedish yacht it was a brand new boat, built to 1930 plans, if memory serves. With a carefully crafted victory in Sunday's final 25 nautical mile coastal race, the Swedish flag Svea won the J-Class at the Super Yacht Cup in Palma, Palma de Mallorca, of course, in Spain. Counting 3 race wins and a third, Svea won by 3 points, highlighting, there's only 3 boats in this, but look at these fabulous photos we'll show you in a moment, highlighting just how close the racing was over the 3 days of competition on the Bay of Palma. Velshita may have pipped the debuting Rainbow team, but it went to tiebreak. So it was quite an event, just 3 boats. Magnificent photos from various sources of not only Svea, but this is Velshita, and this is Rainbow. And the reason the real reason I put this in is because these boats are going to be racing not only in Porto Cervo during the Maxi. Excuse me, I need a little coffee, Julia.
I recommend it.
What is going on here? I guess that's what happens when you get to be old and you're doing an hour and 48-minute show nonstop. Good thing I don't have to take a pee. The Maxi Yacht Rolex Cup, which no doubt Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin will be reporting on for us. That's going on in Porto Cervo in the second week in September. And then the J-boats are once again, as they did in Bermuda, they're going to Barcelona and will be racing in Spain the 5th through the 11th of October.
Beautiful.
David James and I and a few others here in San Francisco know the owner of Svea as well. He is a tech titan and has another tech company, an AI tech company, Julia. We'll talk about him in due course. Clark Chapin is saying proper America's Cup.
You're right, Clark.
Boats. Any other comments? That's why we drink. So where's Tom's Cabana Boy? Water. Yeah, where's my bartender?
Yeah.
We don't have a bartender here anymore now that I stopped drinking.
I know.
After 50 years. And no particular reason.
Says he.
Well, they say that it's bad for your health to drink at all. I thought at least drinking a little red wine and the resveratrol and all that stuff was good for you, but maybe not. Julia, I couldn't help this was a post on my Facebook page. I put it up, and nobody could quite figure out who it was or why I put it up. No, it's not my daughter, Meg. No, it's not Julia when she was 25 years old. You know who that is?
Mm-mm.
It was on my Facebook page.
I know, I looked it up.
And the reason I put it up is she is this new Tom Siebel, Peter Taylor's talking. Yeah, Tom Siebel is the tech titan who owns Svea. But who is this Peter Taylor? Blake Middleton said he quit drinking the morning after he started. He must have had a hangover. No, it's not Stingray. Neither of them is Stingray, Graham Sweeney. She is the new Women's NBA, National Basketball Association sensation, Caitlin Clark. No, I don't know if she's a sailor. If not, we should make her a sailor. She's an American. She was a college star. She scored more points in college, I think, than any college basketball player has ever done, in male or female. Huge sensation. Has just joined now the Chicago Fever or Chicago Fever. It's the Fever, wherever they're from. Yeah. But a lot of us are starting now to follow the WNBA because not only some of the great players that are already in the league, but because of Caitlin Clark, who, by the way, has been kept from being on the USA Olympic team for reasons that escape me, but she's not going to be.
That's tradition that newbies can't go to the Olympics.
Julia, it's not tradition. It's Croutonicism.
It is Croutonic.
It's Croutonic.
They've said that.
It is, I guess, semi-tradition. Okay, so it's Indianapolis or it's Indiana. It's the Fever. Thank you, Joe Holtzman. Thank you. She's absolutely amazing. She's already having an amazing season, but she's being picked on. She is being discriminated against. There is a lot of bad ink and a lot of bad blood on both sides of this issue. And she says, quote, this is her quote defensively, saying, people should not be using my name to push those agendas. It's disappointing. It's not acceptable. What agendas? Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. Clark said Thursday when asked about the comments, treating every single woman in this league with the same amount of respect, I think, it's just a basic human thing that everybody should do. And she's, of course, right. Mm-hmm. So why aren't they treating her with the same respect? Because they're not. Due to Clark's fame, along with being a white basketball player, her name has been brought up in culture wars and online debates, this is according to ESPN, not me, including why she was left off the Team USA Olympic basketball roster and reacting to a number of hard fouls committed against the rookie early in her WNBA career. We don't need to get into it here, Julia, in a big way, but it's not just that she's white that she's being discriminated against.
Yes.
It's because she's straight.
Yep.
That's why her boyfriend is in that picture. That's why I put it on my page to see if anybody realized that. I didn't know if she was gay, straight, or otherwise. I didn't care. But she is fabulous, and she's being discriminated against because apparently her ethnicity and her sexual orientation. So I don't get it, and I don't like it. Mm-hmm. And I think ESPN and others in this country are starting to get it. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot in the meantime. That was on my Facebook page. I promised you I'd put it up. I waited to the end of the show so we didn't get politics at the start of the show. And now we end with something that applies to Julia and myself and probably a few others of you. Forget about organic food. At your age, you need all the preservatives
absolutely
you can get, right?
Right.
Are you going to tell the story about yesterday, or shall I? Julia had a procedure at one of the finest hospitals in the country yesterday.
Yes.
Her doctors told her she didn't need the procedure. She insisted that she get the procedure because I just know I need to have a check to be sure, and they gave you a
endoscopy.
And the endoscopy. And as you were being wheeled in, the nurse said, "You're not the right person."
Yeah, we've got the wrong person because the lady who's supposed to come in here is 85.
And you were dressed nicely. You looked like you were, because I helped roll you down to the van that took you over to the hospital, the wheelchair van.
Yeah.
And you did. You looked like you were going to a cocktail party at St. Francis Yacht Club. You're supposed to be 85. She's looking at her chart.
Why are you here?
Okay, I thought we should end with that because forget about organic food at your age. You need all the preservatives.
I do.
You've had plenty of preservatives. I think It's the good tequila you've been drinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not enough of it.
Well, you were down here for dinner on Sunday. We had a dinner.
Right.
And you had a little bit of vodka.
Yes, because we
were out of tequila. I don't have any tequila left here in the bar. Alan Long says, goes for alcohol as well. Tom, it's a great preservative. Hi, Gordon Smith, we missed you. He has nothing he can object. Gordon would agree with everything we've been saying here. Okay, every rookie gets a rude introduction to the next level of competition. Clark, this rude that she is suffering, that is Caitlin Clark, is over the top. Cole Brower didn't suffer that. Yeah. And I just say in closing on that,
yeah,
Billie Jean King, who is gay,
yeah,
she made the proper comment. She said when somebody came into the tennis, women's tennis,
yeah,
it was the famously good young blonde tennis player from the U.S. Come on, Fozy, help me out. Not Christy, what was her name? Really good, and she was going to be the new generation of young tennis player coming in and probably displacing the old farts. What was her name? And Billie Jean King says, Chrissy Everett, thank you, Claire. Thank you, Vice Commodore Harrington. Chrissy Everett coming in to the pro women's tennis, and apparently Billie Jean King pulled all the players together and said, hey, don't be croutons. Mm-hmm. Don't treat her like she's a third-class citizen.
Right.
She's really good. Don't be upset because no, not Christy Brinkley, David James. Don't be upset because she is good. Treat her like the special player that she is, because she, as JFK said, a rising tide, or at least he stole somebody else's quote, a rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Right.
He said famously in that one of his speeches. And that's what Billie Jean King said to all those tennis players.
Mm-hmm.
Treat her like newly arrived royalty, because she's going to lift it for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And she did.
Yeah.
And that's what these players, the other WNBA players, should be doing, is to say, hey, Caitlin Clark, let's get her to the Olympics. Let's showcase her.
Right.
So what if normally newbies don't go to the Olympics? So what if she couldn't make the training camp because she was in the NCAA finals?
Yeah, I know.
The collegiate finals. Right. Excuse me. It's the same in our silly sport of sailing.
Yeah.
If you got a hot, young 14-year-old, okay, not 14. Come on, Clark, I took advantage. If you got a hot, young sailor, lift them up, propel them, put them on a pedestal, right. Maybe knock them off on the race course if you can, but otherwise celebrate them. Mm-hmm. Right, Julia?
Absolutely.
Billie Jean King is an example for us all, a true national treasure. Couldn't agree more. Morris Stevens.
Yep.
Could not agree more.
Yeah.
And I hope and assume that the ladies in the WNBA will get it, as Martha Peterson got it when she sent us that cartoon, Julia. She knew we'd like that.
Yes.
Preservatives.
Yes.
I won't tell them what we have right after this show. Talking about preservatives. You want to tell them? If we have a good show and we don't drop it, we've dropped 0 frames, we reward ourselves by having what?
A piece of cheese wrapped in a prosciutto.
Prosciutto that's fake meat and fake cheese. It's really bad for you. It's probably full of preservatives, but it tastes good, right? Good thing we're at the end of the show. We got a minute and 30 seconds to go to wrap this one up. We're at the finish line. Julia, you like to say,
please don't forget to like, follow, and share this.
Keep going. How about the comments?
Comments are especially welcome and fun to read.
Yeah, go back and read them, even if you've been here on the show, because we miss a bunch of them, and they are fun and much appreciated.
And instructive.
As appreciated are all the Fozy like Julia, who is a super Fozy. And after 8 years and 721 shows, Julia, I just can't believe that we're still doing this, but it's fun. We do it for the Fozy, we do it for the patrons and everyone else, because this is viewer-supported media. We don't have sponsors, or not many. Every now and then, occasional Fozy wants to give us a few bucks in return for, I'm not getting anything from Magnus, although he is a patron now.
Yeah.
And we'll give him some credit just because we like the book, regardless of whether he is a patron or not.
That's
But
an advantage that we have. We can only do we only have to do the things we want to do.
Julia, 28 seconds.
Yes.
Any final thoughts?
No.
No. Okay. My final thought is no show on Friday rather. We're going to be spreading my mother's ashes beneath her tree in Michigan. In the meantime, have a great rest of your week and weekend. We'll see you next Tuesday. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.